she can sell a movie with her acting. She doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but when she speaks, she does give off a very Charlize Theron impression in a good way. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I apologize if this is extremely late. Welcome back to Epictastic Joshua. If you're new here or old here, welcome. I talk movies, TV, music, and anime, and my name is Joshua Drake, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on Mad Max Furiosa. This is the spin-off and a prequel to Fury Road. It's the 5th film in the series, and is directed by George Miller. This is written by him and Nico Latouris and stars Anya Taylor Joy, Chris Hemsworth, and Ayla Brown. We follow a young Furiosa as she is kidnapped by the forces of warlord Dementus to her revenge on the warlord for the loss of her mother. For over a decade, she struggles to survive as a slave and eventually is a trusted lieutenant of Immortan Joe and his military commander, and she's trying to get back home. This was one of my most anticipated movies. This was my most anticipated film of the year because leading up to Mad Max, I've been revisiting these movies, and I was interested in hearing about a prequel. Yes, I know it was 9 years too late, almost a decade since Fury Road, but I was curious to see what George Miller was going to cook up this time around. Then we're going to have Anya Taylor Joy in the role of Furiosa instead of Charlize Theron, which was kind of conflicting, but I grew on it, seeing the advertisements and seeing that Chris Hemsworth was going to be in it, which he was going to be a completely different role for him, which at first I thought this was going to be way too much. Now having seen the movie, I can confidently say this is my favorite movie of 2024 so far. There's probably going to be a few things that might take the spot, and I'm also pretty pissed and also annoyed at the fact that people did not go and see this. When they say they want more original movies, they want more movies like this, but yet you don't want to go fucking see it.
Come on, man, damn. Cause you don't listen. You're ignorant.
And you know this, man.
I could just rant on that for another hour and a half or 47 minutes. Let's get into my thoughts on the movie. Starting off with the positives is, did George Miller have it in him still to make this great? Yes, he did. This is a different approach from Fury Road, where Fury Road was just a highly octane action movie. This movie decides to take a step backwards, but not completely, and just have us go into the backstory of Furiosa. And for some people, because of the pace, which you do feel the 2 hours and 28 minutes, I will say the first couple minutes, this is one of my issues. I do feel like we could have just speeded up a little bit, but I get what George Miller's trying to do is focus on Furiosa and her backstory as much as he can. But I will say, for this movie, I appreciate the fact that he wants to tell it in 5 chapters, 5 sections, but the way he chooses to do it here, 80 years old, almost 80 years old, George Miller can still make a good movie like this. And I appreciate the fact that it's not trying to be Fury Road. It wants to be his own thing. I always say, if you're gonna do a prequel or a sequel or a remake or something, or a different adaptation, be your own thing. Don't copy what came before. And I really enjoyed the fact that this movie tried to do that. Gets the action down packed when it needs to be, but I like the tactic of 5 different sections of the movie, as well as not having a lot of dialogue with Furiosa and relying on facial expressions and visual storytelling. And for a story like this that tells a great revenge story that, while we've seen it all before, is in this crazy post-apocalyptic mind and visual flair of George Miller, he's able to make it epic and he's able to make it worth it. And I think that is really well done here. And George Miller puts a stamp on it. I also appreciate the fact that it did take its time in the first couple minutes, but it had the ambition to tell a story about Furiosa with almost little to no dialogue with her. You get facial expressions of her, but I think overall it really did work in the long run here. Then there's the action. The action is still as crazy and still as chaotic as the other movies. There is drops of CGI, which is not really that noticeable to me because I was so caught up into the story and into the character development of Furiosa and Dementus, of course, which Dementus is such a really good villain here that I really enjoyed what the actor and the director and writers brought to this. This could have easily been some very over-the-top character who just would not shut up, but I think the way it chooses to go about it really made it for a much interesting experience. And going back into the action, of course, it is practical. For the most part, is almost practical. Everyone doing their own stunts. You got stunt teams. Is carefully designed, carefully choreographed. Again, this is how you should be doing action. 100% practical, even if you have to use small drops of CG, which some of it is noticeable here, I will say. But I will say for the action is really well done. It's also still very well shot with the colors, the cinematography, and the color palettes. There's some great sweeping shots, some great close-ups, and the way the trickeries he does with the camera. Editing wise, for 2 hours and 28 minutes, it doesn't really feel like 2 hours and 28 minutes. It's only the first couple of minutes where you do kind of feel it because they're giving you so much backstory with Furiosa, but I would rather have a director take his time than to just freaking have something be hacked and studio interfered all the time. It should not really be that scenario. And I do appreciate the fact that this movie did try to do that. Junkie XL's score here is once again fantastic. Is just as great, if not better, than his score in Fury Road. And I definitely really enjoyed the music in the movie. So technical aspects, the writing and directing and action is all 100% great. Let's talk about the acting in this, because you have two actors playing Furiosa. I want to start off with Anya Taylor Joy. Now, it does take a while to see her in the role of Furiosa because we do focus on Ayla Brown as a younger Furiosa, but I really thought Anya Taylor Joy, she did a really good job. This is definitely one of my favorite performances out here. And people will say otherwise, saying that she can't sell a movie like this, but the Super Mario Brothers and other movies that she's done, smaller and especially in horror, says otherwise, that she can sell a movie with her acting. She doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but when she speaks, she does give off a very Charlize Theron impression in a good way. But it's really her facial expressions, her eyes. You can see what she's thinking. You can tell that she's been through a lot of shit. You can see that she is just gone through the motions. And that's the thing I really do appreciate when it comes to her performance in the movie. Ayla Brown, I know she's going to be in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 as Maria. I know she's an Australian actress, but she is a pretty damn good child actress here. She does a very good job in the role of young Furiosa. And Anya Taylor Joy, she's pretty badass, especially when you have to get the infamous look down. And even in this Wasteland, they still managed to make her look beautiful, but also look pretty badass and went through some shit. Chris Hemsworth, despite the fact that it started off a little bit too much when it comes to him being so extremely over the top, and I wasn't really feeling it the first couple of minutes, as the movie kept going on and kept going, I started to grow on him a lot more in the role as Dementus. He's very campy. He's having fun with this. Is it one of my favorite roles from him? I'm not so sure if I can go that far. I still think Thor and Cabin in the Woods or other movies like Extraction is where he really does feel like he's at his most interesting. But here I will say, as Dementus, he really does do a good job in this. The supporting cast is good here too. You have Tom Burke as the love interest, of course, but it's done in a way where I found it interesting here. Historian Jack. You also have Lacey Holm as Immortan Joe, taking over for the late Hugh Keys Byrne. And also Charlie Fraser is Mary Jenkins. She was great here. I was very impressed with her as Mary Jabasa. She was another one of the standouts. I recently saw her in Anyone But You, and she's going places here. She's going places. So the acting all the way around is pretty strong. I will say, for my only real issues, which this is one of them, is just a small nitpick. This is going to be a warning. The nitpick, I will say, it does take a while to get going, and for some people, you are going to have to be fully invested into the character of Furiosa and what George Miller is trying to give to you in this prequel. And the splitting it into 5 chapters could annoy some people for the 2 hours and 28 minutes. But because of the directing and the capabilities, and because of the story and characters, and because I was engrossed, I was able to overlook that issue. CGI at points is a little noticeable, but it's not some of the worst CGI ever. I'm tired of kind of hearing that complaint. You are going to have to use CG for some of these big movies, especially if you're under $200 million. This is $168 million. Yeah. Overall, this is a movie that is my favorite movie of the year. This was something that's made for the theatrical experience, not to be seen at home. You can watch this at home just fine, but you're not going to get that same experience there. And the fact that, again, so many people just did not want to go see this and rather spend their money on Garfield, which I haven't seen, but the fact that people would rather wait to watch a movie like this at home is irritating. If you want movies like this or originality, you need to get off your ass and go to the theaters. I know it's hard because of inflation and because people have work and such, but that doesn't mean you can at least devote some of your time to a lot of these movies coming out, because it's not funny anymore. We're not in the 2020 year anymore. Theaters and movies to keep going, go watch stuff in theaters. I'm an advocate for streaming as well, but the theatrical experience always is going to come first. But if you are someone who did not get to see this in theaters, definitely watch it while it's still in there. You can watch it at home, but again, you're not going to get that same experience. But I was really impressed with this prequel, with the story and the characters and such. And I just thought George Miller, even at his older age, still has what it takes to make a great Mad Max movie. Well, that's going to do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.